Well, welcome to the Dickinson Public Schools State of the District. My name's Marcus Lewton, and I'm the Superintendent of Dickinson Public Schools. The first thing I want to do is start out with a note of gratitude for our students, family, and staff. The last 3 or 4 years have not been easy in America, and it has not been here easy for our staff either. So a lot of great things happening, which is what I want to talk about next. So across the district, just lots of items to celebrate, all the way from student individual successes at the state level in sports and teams, to student and team successes from a club standpoint, whether that's an FFA or TSA or Skills USA. Just a lot of great things going on with our student body, both on the state level, even on the national level. So kudos to those kids, but also kudos to our staff. We have Principals of the Year, we have Staff of the Year, we have people that have been recognized on a regional level and on a state level. Just a lot of great things going on with our staff and students, both academically, professionally, and from an athletic standpoint. So lots of good things going on at Dickinson Public Schools. You need to know that your school board is dedicated to the academic success of our students. We know that it's been a rough time through the pandemic, and our school board took the initiative to adopt 3 academic goals. The first being increased third grade reading scores. We know the importance and the immediacy of being able to read at proficient at 3rd grade. We know that when students can't, that oftentimes school for the rest of their life is difficult. So knowing that we really want to set that goal and we want to make sure that our students are proficient readers at 3rd grade. 8th grade math, increasing 8th grade math scores on the NDSA is another goal that our school board has adopted. We know that when students are not proficient in 8th grade math and they move on to the high school, if they fail algebra, that drastically increases their likelihood that they will not graduate high school. So we know that it's important for 3rd and 8th grade math, 3rd grade reading for the academic success of children. Our seniors, your school board has adopted a goal in relation to your graduates. So when seniors graduate, we want to increase their choice ready scores. So we want to make sure that they're ready to go to either college, a career, or onto the military. So 3 great goals that our school board are working on, and they're dedicated to them. From an achievement data standpoint, you know that from a 3 through 8 on the top, our composite scores on the NDSA, we really are about at the average for the state in both ELA, math, and science. When it comes to the ACT, we're slightly below the average, although we are beginning to cut that gap. And then our choice ready metrics, we have declined a little over the last year, and we believe that's primarily due to better data collection. One thing, a note, all of that's happening even though we're facing all this adversity in Southwest North Dakota. When I say adversity, we had over 550 new students last year. We don't even have 4,000 students, so we had over 550 new students come into the district last year. We recently ran a sample on new students coming into our district, and that sample showed on the NWA, so every new student that comes into our district, we give them an assessment to determine how can we personalize their schedule, make sure they're supported. What we found was that 17% of new students coming into the district from outside, whether that's a different country, somewhere else in the country here, or our region, 17% in math were proficient on the NWA. 29% were proficient in reading on the NWA. And that's compared to about 60% that we regularly see on our NWA scores when we give them across the grade band. Those are our kids. I was one of those kids. I moved in 3rd grade, I moved in 6th grade, and I moved in 9th grade. And I just want to thank my teachers, some of them at high school here, that took care of me when I did my move. So I want to make sure that even though our new students coming in on average aren't at the proficiency level that we'd like them to be, that we're trying to take care of them. When it comes to budget, I communicated last year that we were operating in the red. We were over $1 million in the red last year. Staff and the board did a good job of correcting that, and we're now operating in the black this year. We're gonna have about $58 million in expenses this year, with 82% of that going to staff and the rest going to operations. When it comes to revenue, we're gonna bring in just under $59 million. Of that $59 million, 57% of it comes from the state, so through state aid. 17% from federal, and that speaks really to a lot of the federal grants we have received. That number is probably a little higher than it would be in the past, primarily because of ESSER, which we've used to increase the capacity of our educators, help our students that need, and address some of the systems in our buildings that are outdated. And then oil and gas brings in about 3.1%. Of the local, about 22% comes from local spent or local revenue. We have 70 mills that we levy for the general fund, 10 of a possible 20 for the building fund, and that's money that goes directly into fixing our buildings, putting roofs and windows and sidewalks in our buildings. And then our sinking in interest at 25.7 mills levy, that's the middle school. That's where we are right here. When it comes to miscellaneous fund, all that money goes right into the general fund currently, and we have 8 of the possible 12 mills that we could levy. Speaking about facilities, so we have about 850,000 square feet of facilities at Dickinson Public Schools. The average age of our buildings is 56 years old. The oldest is 103 at Roosevelt, and the newest is this building right here at 6 years old. Of the 6 elementaries we have, 4 of the 6 are at capacity or near capacity. Prairie Rose and Berg have some space left in them, but not a lot. Comes to the high school, we're at capacity there, and I'll speak a little bit to that later. It's also really important to note that Dickinson over the years has done a really good job of adjusting to an increase in population. Every one of our buildings has been added onto, with the exception of this building, DMS, and Hart River Elementary on the south side. Lincoln Elementary has been added onto 6 separate times. Most of our buildings have been added onto 3-4 times. So we've done a really good job of adjusting to that increase in population and not having to build entirely new plants, which usually significantly increase the cost to the public. Last summer, I asked Assistant Superintendent Harris to begin working on a 10-year facility maintenance plan. We knew that was important as our buildings were aging to 56 years old on average. So when you start getting older buildings, those systems get old in those buildings, whether it's the electrical system or the HVAC system, and they start costing you money. So we knew that our buildings were starting to cost us significant amounts of money, and that our $1.6 million that we levy in our building fund that we get every year was not going to meet our needs. So we hired Consolidated Construction, who really specialize in the Midwest in looking at 10-year facility plans. So they went through our buildings, all of them with a fine-tooth comb, and they really came up with a 0 to 10-year plan for us when it comes to facilities. Looking at that chart, you can see there's some outliers. In Roosevelt, it's been 103 years old. Roosevelt's actually in pretty good shape. It's just the older part that has some system updates that need to occur. Hagen Junior High, which, believe it or not, is full right now with different district students and district needs. But the outlier really is DHS, Dickinson High School. Dickinson High School needs about $35 million in system upgrades right now over the next 10 years. And that's something our building levy will not sustain. You can see on the bottom, we got the original 68 boiler system. You've probably watched Facebook or online and you've seen us have some problems this winter with that system. That steam system needs to be replaced into a hot water system, and that cost is upwards over of $10 million when you look at the whole building and gutting it and putting in a new system. Of our electrical system there, we're pretty much maxed out. It's still that original 68 system. We can't find components for it anymore. So when we do have problems, it becomes the challenge to keep the lights on, so to say. And then there are other things too, like our fire announcement system. 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, 600 pod, we almost were not able to have class in it because that original 68 system, we can't find parts for it anymore. So we needed a component for that system. Luckily, we were able to work with the fire department. We were able to keep it running, but we can't find parts. And so it's becoming very challenging for some of those systems. You also probably know we have some roof updates and parking lot updates. And then the high school, we'd really like to improve the safety in that facility right now. So a lot of money to update or keep the Dickinson High School going. Speaking about the high school from a facility or an enrollment standpoint, so what you have in front of you right now is cohorts. So the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior cohort sizes. So you can see we're out of space. You can see we're out of space right now, and you can see that problem just escalates. Right now, your senior class is just over 200 students. Your first grade class right now is 365 students. And your sixth grade class or your eighth grade class that's going into the high school next year is over 300 students. So you can do the math very simply, and you can really quickly begin to understand that if you're out of space now, you're really going to be out of space in the future. So what are we doing to address those needs? As we mentioned before, from a facility standpoint, there's about $35 million in needs everywhere from, and that's everything from fire to security, ADA, boilers, electrical, roofing, parking lot, everything. So we know that we have a large amount of money that needs to be spent on some of those older systems. We know that there's a capacity issue right now at the high school. We just had 10 sections of health careers that was at the high school being offered at DMS because we were out of space. So we had 3.5 teachers, or 3 1/3 teachers up here. They just finally moved to the CTE center. We know that we've done other things. We know that DSU, we're offering 150 credits this year where students from DHS go to DSU because we're out of space, and we want to offer them that opportunity. We know that we've offered online classes. We have a Rough Rider Virtual Academy to try and create space and offer another option. And we've offered classes in the past outside of the schedule. And then we've also purchased existing buildings, and I'll talk about that in the future, just to try and remediate the issue. So we're going to need to make some sound decisions. We've engaged architects, we've engaged construction companies, and we know that those pods, that older part of the high school, not the new part, but the older part, have a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of system updates. We know that the cost of renovating and updating those pods is pretty significant. It's just as significant as replacement of those pods, or near anyways. And it doesn't, if we were to replace the pods, let's say, like a new addition, you're looking at 18 months probably for a build. The pods would have to be done while school's going on. So you're looking at a 4 to 5 year plan, which could also exacerbate the costs. I don't know what construction's gonna do next year or in 2 years or in 3 years, but I know what it's done from last year to this year, and it's gone up very considerably. So, as we move forward, I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But first I want to talk about something really exciting. The Southwest Area Career and Tech Ed Academy. Lots of great things happening. What an example of when you collaborate in a community. What can happen? What are the possibilities? So the Southwest Area Career and Tech Ed Academy, DPS purchased that. We received some grants, both federal and state. We've received private support of that academy and political subgroup support to that academy. We are going to increase the footprint or the availability for CTE in Southwest North Dakota greatly, and it hasn't cost property tax owners a dime. So we're going to put 80,000 square feet into use, and it hasn't cost taxpayers a dime. and that's because we've been able to collaborate and get grants. We opened in February, Building A, that's the small building, just south of the hub, and that has health careers in it. That was the classes that were offered in DMS here. So we're excited about that. We know Building B is going to open up in August. It's on schedule. And in that, we're going to have automotive, computer science, culinary arts, diesel tech, welding, and then diesel tech and welding for also the college, for DSU. What a great example of that 9-16 spectrum, right? Building C, we're a little bit behind on that. That's because we were not able to access the grant money that we needed. We now were able to do that thanks to the governor, and that will come into play the next year. But in that building, we'll have ag, construction, drafting, heavy equipment, and law enforcement. Just lots of cool things going on up there, not only in the district, but also up there. We've hired teachers for that academy already. I think there was a truck that was donated today. Just an outpouring of support from our community for something that's going to support the community. So talk about 9-12, 6-8, we're good. Talk about K-5 space. We know that Roosevelt's 103 years old and there's some work that needs to be done there. We know that 4 of our 6 elementary buildings are at capacity or near capacity. We know that we'll continue to see an increase in growth. We're getting little over 300 fifth graders coming to the middle school next year. Kindergarten class right now is 15. Kindergarten class right now is 315. First grade class is 365. And the first grade class is right around 295, I believe. So we know those classes continue to grow. So what are we going to do? That's where we really need to engage the community again. And I'll talk a little bit about a survey that's coming up. But we know that we're going to be out of space. We also know that our Hagen building, which is 87 years old, has our 3 through 5 preschool in it. It also has our Southwest Community High School in it, adult ed, Family Resource Center, RASP, technology, a lot of things, and it needs a lot of work also. It's an 87-year-old building. Systems get outdated when they're 87 years old. So how are we going to do this? Well, we know that we get $1.6 million a year to work on our buildings. We know that over the next 10 years, we need $60 million. So 1.6 times 10 is 16, so you're short $44 million. That's where we need to engage the community. We need to ask the community, what do you want to do with your buildings? They're community buildings, and we need input from you as a community. So what have we done so far? We've done a very similar presentation as this to all staff members in December and January. I think it even went into February with snowstorms. We got kicked back. We're presenting to the community today. This is on Consolidated and it'll be on YouTube, and I hope lots of people watch it just to educate themselves. We will be sending out a staff to our community, or a survey, sorry. We'll be sending out a survey to all families in the Dickinson Public Schools school district zone. So private, public, anybody, any mailing address. And then hopefully from that survey, that we survey staff, what do you want to do with some of our buildings, we'll be able to make a decision in June. If the community wants us to do whatever they want us to do, if that involves a levy or a bond referendum, then we'll possibly go in the fall, go to that if that's what the survey says. And that's it. That's the quickest day of the district ever. Does anybody have any questions? Well, if not, I'll hang around and you can definitely ask some questions. If you're on Consolidated or YouTube later, feel free to email me or call the central office, 701-456-0002, and just let me know what questions you have. Yeah, in the back. Yeah, so the question is, Heart River is the only school that we can add on to. Heart River is about at max capacity right now, but Heart River is the only school that has a large enough footprint where we can make it a larger building. So we could add a section or 2 sections, make it a 3 or a 4 section school. Mr. Harris was smart enough a few years ago when we used some money to upgrade the HVAC system. We expanded it large enough that it wouldn't be such a cost when we were to put an addition on it. It wasn't that much more, and that just seemed to make a lot of sense at the time. So Heart River is the only, as if you've driven around town and you've seen these one section schools become or three section schools, you know, traffic, parking gets to be, I mean, it's an inexpensive way to add space, but it also becomes traffic, becomes an issue, and parking becomes a space. Heart River's got the largest Prairie Rose might have a larger footprint, but pretty close to the largest footprint that we have for an elementary, and there's space there to add on to. The other option, would be build another elementary to deal with your increase in enrollment, or do other things, that are outside the box of traditional education. Well, awesome. Like I said, you can email me at mlewton@dpsnd.org or call the school, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have or ideas you might have. All of those ideas, how we've dealt with high school being over enrollment or being at its capacity, really came from the community. So appreciate your ideas and have a grateful night.